Welcome back, everyone, to the Turning Point Meta Podcast, where we talk about the decisions, techniques, and maneuvers throughout CEDH. I am your host, Nathan, and again, with me, as always, is my co-host, Chris.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
So, it's time. It's time to get into colors. We talked about colorless. We talked about lands. We got through that one.
we named the playlist Colors, and we haven't gone over
and we
yet.
haven't touched a single color yet. It's color time. So we wanted to start with an interesting one because apparently, based on the information that I was just shown, and we're obviously going to refer to you guys, I was pretty wrong. I thought green was a pretty represented color casually. I thought it was pretty high up there.
Nope.
And I am wrong. So again, like we're going to do with all the upcoming colors, we're going to go through them. We're going to show you what you guys typically play casually, what you guys are typically going to see, and then see if any of it really translates over to CEDH, which is going to be an interesting one. I think this one's going to be an interesting little journey to go on.
Yeah, hopefully we can open up some of your guys' eyes. So get out your forest green crayon and go ahead and color along with us. So the very first thing that we went over about 30 different cards over EDH Rec. Some of them we just kind of lumped in together, so that way we're not repeating the same card 80 times. Save our mental a little bit and save you guys some time as well. So the first effect and the most played card in green for EDH Rec is going to be Cultivate. So we're going to call these the Cultivate effects in general. We're going to go over all the different cards real quick, percentages, and then similarities. And then we have a special one for you at the end that Nate will go over. So the first one is going to be Cultivate at 47%. You go get two basics, one in hand, one in battlefield. Cool. Super easy. We have Kadama's Reach, which is the exact same effect, but 32% played. We have Rampant Growth, which is 35% played. One basic, go get one to battlefield. Secure Tribe Elders, basically the same thing, but a creature, but only 19%. That one's kind of interesting. We were talking about that before the show, Nate. Is there any reason why people are not playing Secure Tribe Elder when it does the exact same thing, but it can block?
Yeah, I don't know. We were kind of talking about this because you bring up an absolutely good point, right? Because like if someone's going to go off with combat, which a lot of people casually do. People love their combat, right? People love their hasty, fun creatures. To just like block that first strike and be like, cool, in response to the damage, I'm going to sacrifice them and go search my basic. Mm-hmm. Maybe some people just don't know that's part of the interaction that you can do.
Yeah, because it's not a tap. It's just sacrifice.
Yeah, you just sacrifice them.
And you go and get it. So it's kind of interesting. You guys, Secure Tribe Elder.
Yeah, maybe people are trying to go for a certain kind of strategy where they're trying to lay lower on the creature side of things, but still land ramp.
Maybe.
But I can't.
I don't know.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of something that would want to do that over just having this if it's an option. So I don't know.
I mean, a very common counter spell in general that's incredibly inexpensive, Negate. One in the blue, counter target, non-creature spell.
Yeah, non-creature spell.
Non-creature spell. Secure Tribe Elder gets around that. So, hey, if you're trying to ramp out that one last thing for next turn, Secure Tribe Elder is going to get around some of those interesting counter spells. The next one is Farseek at 34% played. Grab one basic that is not a green land. Kind of interesting. Its own little oddity within all of these. And then we have Nature's Lore at 32% and 3 Tree Visit at 25%. And they do the exact same thing. Go grab one forest.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. The Nature's Lore and the 3 Visits are... maybe it's a price thing. I think they are a little bit more expensive than the other ones because I believe it just puts them onto the battlefield and it doesn't put them onto the battlefield tapped, which is nice.
Okay.
I think the other nice thing about 3 Visits and Nature's Lore specifically is that it says go get a forest, not a basic forest.
Interesting.
So you can go get a Triome, right? You can go get your breeding pool or whatever, right? Because I was actually running Nature's Lore and 3 Visits in my Paco and Halden list.
Nice.
Because I liked land ramp in that deck.
Sure. And
right?
And they're pretty cheap. One in a green, that's reasonable.
Yeah, so... and then Farseek I thought was interesting, but I think it makes a lot of sense just because with Farseek, people like their color fixing. I believe Farseek goes and gets a basic of any of those types.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah. And I think for color fixing, for a cheap card, I'm sure it's probably like a couple cents. I get it as far as a casual card goes, 100%.
Cool.
So last on the list that sees 10% of play is Crop Rotation. So crop rotation, as an additional cost to cast crop rotation, you have to sacrifice a land, and then you tutor up any land and put it onto the battlefield. So it is interesting that something that gets any single land in your deck sees very little play, and crop rotation is not exactly expensive. Maybe maybe casual players feel like you're giving up a lot by sacrificing one of your lands.
It's potential. We did talk about lands last week, and do I want to go get a scry land with this?
I mean, well, that's the thing, right? Is the fact that you can get anything, you can get what you need in that moment.
Sure.
Right? If you feel like you need to manipulate the top of your deck, sure, go get a scry land.
Sure.
Go
Surveil.
get a surveil land.
Sure.
But like casually, I could see this going and getting like your Urborg.
Sure.
You know, or like one of these big utility lands that sees a lot of play. Cabal Coffers is the one that goes with Urborg.
Bajuka Bog.
Yeah, Bajuka Bog, right?
Bajuka Bog.
Instant speed, someone's going to try to go some like, some zombie loop. And you're like, okay, crop rotation away my forest, and now Bajuka Bog, your graveyard.
So it does give you a lot of utility. We only went about over 8 of these effects, but there's 10 over the top 30 that are 10% or more that are played.
I think these ones are pretty standard. When I played casually, I saw all of these cards all of the time. I actually never saw a crop rotation cast casually, which again, I find a little interesting because there are still good utility lands even in casually.
No Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, well, obviously not, right?
Homeward Path.
But there's still good lands casually, so I am a little bit surprised to see that, right? People like their Nykthoses in casual still.
Ooh,
you know what I mean?
Mono
Like
green, sure.
yeah.
Sure.
So it's surprising, but I do get that most of these effects are, go get your basic because people love their basics casually. So
Okay.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. We don't want to see these cultivate effects too much, but there's a couple that we do see when we get to the CH section. We definitely will check that one out.
Yeah, 100%.
The next section is a big one. Birds of Paradise, the mana dorks in general, right? So the very first one is Birds of Paradise, and that one is the most played green spell in CDH as well at 39%.
Yep.
In EDH regular casual, it's only about 27%. Birds of Paradise make a mana of any color, 0/1. The remaining ones are Land of War Elves at 21%, Elvish Mystic at 18%, Finhorn Elves at 14%, and Wild Growth at 11%. And these are the ones we consider a mana dork. They come out, they are able to tap for a green source, Birds of Paradise for anything. Wild Growth is definitely, I think, going to see more play here soon enough. It has no summoning sickness. It can only tap for green, but whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. Is there a way to there's a couple different ways to untap these lands, so there's definitely ways to make more mana than you spend into Wild Growth. I don't know if there's any infinite combos with Wild Growth, those kind of effects.
No, not that I'm really aware. Well, depending on whether or not you, if we're talking CEDH side and then combo potential in these kinds of effects, there have been people that have run like your Wild Growths, your Utopia Sprawls, which I am a little surprised to see doesn't see quite as much play because it taps for a mana of any color. But then again, I guess if you're going like Elf Ball, it doesn't really make sense to run a Utopia Sprawl maybe.
Sure.
And I believe Fertile Ground was like the third one, and it's 2 mana, but it enchants any land because I think Utopia Sprawl has to enchant a forest.
I think, yeah.
Fertile Ground can enchant any land, and then it taps for any color. And so essentially you would actually do like Earthcraft, like Cloud of Fairy style loops.
Okay.
And like use like Eternal Witness and Snap kind of stuff, but with your really buffed up land that taps for like 4 mana.
That's very doable in EDH.
Yeah, 100%. And some CEDH decks played around with it. Rogthras was actually playing with the idea of doing something similar to that. And it's interesting. We don't see a lot of those effects. I think they are going to see a lot more play with the new bans that happened recently, where I think they are going to see a bit of a push. And then Mana Dorks, I love me Mana Dorks. I really do. Especially your Birds of Paradise. Obviously, Chris just mentioned that it's the highest in CDH because it taps for any color. It's a rainbow dork. And I love my rainbow dorks as well.
Mark Poole, original creator of Birds of Paradise. Love that.
Yeah,
man.
it's fantastic.
Yep.
Orcish Bowmaster really hurt dorks. Which is actually why I kind of like the wild growths and the Utopia sprawls now with everything that's going on.
Yes.
Because they don't get hit by those kinds of effects, and we don't really touch lands much in our format as far as CEDH is concerned.
No.
I mean, hell, even EDH, right? We don't really see a lot of land destruction style effects.
No, not really.
So I really do like dorks. A lot of these we'll see play.
Yep.
As far
The wild growths of the format, I think, are going to be really good here soon enough. They if the land's untapped, it doesn't have summoning sickness. If you have Collector Oof or Null Rod or Karn, you can still activate them. Yep. They don't get hit by Bowmasters. I think they're insanely good. Culling Ritual still hits them, but it hits an elf as well. Yeah. So I think it's a more resilient elf. Outside of overrun effects for EDH, I think they're incredibly good, and I think they'll see more play here soon enough.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair.
Okay. The next set of spells that we're going over are going to be interaction spells. Green does really good at interacting with destroying artifacts. Crows and Grip is one in particular.
Yep.
Split Second didn't meet the criteria for this, but the very first one, and I really like this one, and you see it in a lot of precons in general, is going to be Beast Within at 39%. It's the second most played green spell in all of EDH rec. It's destroy target permanent. Not destroy target creature, not destroy target artifact. It is destroy target permanent. You can hit a land that has
that's buffed up with a bunch of your Utopia sprawls and stuff. Yeah,
it's insanely good. You can get rid of an enchantment. You can get whatever that's on the battlefield that you want to get rid of. So I think it's really good. They get a 3/3 Beast. Doesn't have trample. You got 40 life. It's 3 mana, but I think for it hitting anything that you need at instant speed, which is huge in EDH, is being instant speed. Beast of Within is incredibly important. Reclamation Sage is our next one at 12% for interaction. Destroy target artifact or enchantment when it ETBs, and if you can flicker over and over again, cool. Blow up most of the board in general, especially in that new green-black artifact deck that Nick is playing actually.
Oh, Yigra.
Yigra might actually see some interesting play with the Dockside ban now.
Yeah, I was going to say, now that Dockside's banned, you don't really have to worry too much about someone dropping it, and then all the creatures count for Dockside, and so something like a Rex Sage could enter with Yigra on the field and just blow up whatever the heck it wants to blow up, essentially.
The majority of the land,
which is really nice. I do like it. I also like the fact that it is on a creature. Creatures aren't, obviously, when it comes to competitive, like these kinds of effects, these 3 mana creatures that just blow up one thing, not the best in the world, right?
Yeah.
But it is pretty much uncounterable in our format, right? Like there's a lot of things. You're not going to force of will a reclamation stage, right? You're not going to pact of negation something like this.
Strict Serenade at worst, but
at worst. But like you're not really going to counter something like this. And so the fact that it's on a body is kind of nice. So I do like Reclamation Sage. Competitively wise, it's
a little bit slow.
It's slow. It's not quite doing the thing quick enough. Beast Within, when things were a little bit slower, I think did see a little bit of competitive play, but it was when things were just, you could easily afford to do something like that at instant speed and hit a permanent.
Yeah.
And then before we continue on, the other piece that we want to talk about is Nature's Claim.
That's a good one.
So now Nature's Claim, I believe as far as the CEDH statistics on this, it actually doesn't see a ton of play.
No.
I actually tried this out a couple times.
In what deck?
And I was actually trying it out in Corvold.
Okay.
Because there were some enchantments like Rule of Law style effects that were kind of slowing me down.
Sure.
Blind Obedience loops, you can't really go Blind Obedience stuff, you can't really do anything with those. So I was actually running Nature's Claim. I think it's great. It destroys a target artifact or enchantment, and its controller gains 4 life. Instant speed, 1 green.
Okay.
Right? Super nice.
Very modal. It can work on you. You can blow up your own artifact or enchantment to save your life to get to your next turn to then go off. You can blow up someone else's artifact enchantment, and enchantments are hard to get rid of. Once they're on the board, if they're above 3 CMC, they're hard to get rid of.
Yes.
They're very hard outside of bouncing everything back to their hand. And I think Nature's Claim is really good. Seen this a lot in Modern in the sideboards back in the day, so it's definitely a very good card. Them gaining 4 life is very minimum if you're in a combo deck that doesn't care about how much life they have, or you're just going to overrun for 100. Doesn't matter if they game 4.
Right. So yeah. So I mean, as far as interaction goes, that's pretty much all we really have. I'm again, there's going to be tons that we probably don't go over. But so we're just trying to go off the statistics of over 10%. So that way we're hitting a more generalistic audience, and people are probably going to see these things.
Sure. Last week we talked about lands in general, and with the new dockside ban, how do you feel about the artifact lands?
You know, I don't know if I hate them now, especially now that with having Mox Opal, right? I was concerned about Mox Opal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess now with artifact lands,
Metalcraft.
I
would much rather play it over a basic any day.
Interesting.
I can't fetch it with my fetch lands, but being able to play that early on,
to turn on your Mopal, and then you can just,
Yep, it was a thought I had during this last little segment, and I'm like, man, that changes some things.
They might actually, that might actually be something that we can do now.
Yeah, get your foils while you can.
So the next one we're going to move on to is Creature Search in EDH, and this one really surprises me.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like I said earlier, we go over 10%. So anything under 10% doesn't make our list as far as EDH Rec is concerned. Worldly Tutor is at 14% of green decks. That surprises me because that is the only thing on our Creature Search list. Now, don't get me wrong. Worldly Tutor, for those that don't know, it's an instant speed, 1 green, search a library for a creature, you put it on top, you draw it for a turn.
Super easy.
Super easy, super simple.
Do it on your upkeep. Do it on their turn.
Yeah, it's a fantastic piece, right? It's you can do it super early to go get like a mana dork if you need one. You can do it late in the game to go grab like your Crater Hoof for some big other beast, or
Win the game.
Do some crazy landfall things. You're like, oh, if I go get my Scoot Swarm here, I'll Worldly Tutor for my Scoot Swarm, right? So I love Worldly Tutor. Worldly Tutor's fantastic. Worldly Tutor sees play in our format. We'll go over the numbers on that as well. I'm just really surprised it's just the one.
I am as well, because one of the things that green does best in CDH is going to be getting stuff from the library directly to the battlefield, which is pretty insane that you don't see more of these in general. A lot of them are, some of them are instant speed, some of them are artifacts that then you sacrifice in Birthing Pod and some other different options like that. It's just interesting that you don't see more.
Yeah, I think the one that I'm really surprised that I don't see, especially because the backside is actually really good, is Invasion of Ikoria.
Sure.
So Invasion of Ikoria, we'll bring it up again, but I figure I'd bring it up now.
Go for it, yeah.
Is X green, you search for a non-human, which, I mean, green has
Elf.
usually like Elf Ball or, beasts or things like that, right? They don't really have a ton of, I mean, they do have humans, obviously, but not a ton. You search for your library for a non-human, and you put it directly onto the battlefield where X is the CMC you pay into it. But then you can attack that battle. It flips to Xylortha, which is with an 8/8 with reach, that for each non-human creature you control, you may have that creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked.
So even better than Trample.
Yeah, so it's like you can just say, well, I'm just going to say it does all the damage to you anyway, right?
Okay.
Which, that's crazy. Right?
Huh.
For like those overrun style effects and the things that green does really well, I'm really surprised that I don't see this much in EDH. Like, I'm surprised it doesn't see more play.
It's about $11 to $15 is the most expensive.
Okay.
So, but $10. I mean, it sees 4% in EDH Rec, so it's below our amount entirely. But you're 100% right on it. It's only seen playing about 77,000 decks, which is okay. I mean, it's considerable, but
yeah, 4% of decks. I'm just a little surprised. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm
hurt.
hurt.
I'm hurt. I'm offended. Guys, what are we doing?
But yeah, I was just surprised because I feel like that's something that green leans into really well. And maybe people just don't think about it, or maybe they're just not. Maybe the effect just doesn't feel strong enough for some of the effects that like we personally use in like CEDH or something. But obviously, we'll get into that as well. So
Okay.
So next we're going to move on to protection. So biggest piece of protection, and it's, again, the only one on our list that meets the criteria, is Heroic Intervention. I mean, super simple. Permanence you control, gain hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. Obviously, if this is like a toxic deluge, right, it won't stop it.
Languish.
Right, languish, things like those. They give those minus one counters, or just minus in general.
Yep.
But heroic intervention is great.
It's
right?
really good.
Just at instant speed, someone attempts to just like Wrath of God, and you're just like, cool, heroic intervention, and then all of your stuff is safe, and everyone goes, crap, now we lose. Right?
Or you could just Wrath of God and yourself, and then heroic intervention.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insanely good. I mean, hexproof. Obviously, someone tries to target it. Indestructible. Also, the -1 counters, or the across the board. This thing's pretty good. Instant speed, like we've said in the past, is not heavy in EDH, but this is an absolute banger. It sees 30% of play in EDH for green, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%. Love me a heroic intervention.
Mm-hmm. Always a blowout, it seems like.
Right. And then last up, we have Recursion. Again, only kind of one card that meets our criteria, and it's Eternal Witness. Eternal Witness is a human shaman for 1 green. When it enters, you return a target card from your graveyard to your hand. I love Eternal Witness.
It's incredibly good.
Just to be able to, like, grab your big beast again, or go get your beast within because you got to deal with something again, or go get this elf that was like really going off with something, right?
You can loop a lot of different things with
Yeah,
this entirely.
I was going to say, but then when you start to get stronger and stronger, it also loops with a lot of things. It also goes with a couple of combos in our format, and
get another heroic intervention.
yeah, there's just so much, right?
Yes.
Go get your worldly tutor again, tutor up your next creature, right? There's a lot of ways that Eternal Witness can see play and do very well.
Yeah.
So overall, 22% of decks play Eternal Witness, and that doesn't surprise me because I think Eternal Witness is great.
I think it's good.
I think if you're not in black, I think it's kind of obviously your most played Recursion piece if you're not in those kinds of colors. And I think it makes tons of sense.
Absolutely.
Love Eternal Witness.
Okay.
I think it's time we get into our side of things.
Yes.
Let's talk about the CEDH side of things. Now, the CEDH side of things, there's clearly a distinction of like what we care about when it comes to green and its capabilities, which is interesting. I think it's because sometimes even we don't really know the distinctions of like between EDH to CEDH, right?
Yeah.
And so like from what I was looking at in EDH, it seems like they care about like their elf ball stuff and just like creatures and
Cultivation effects.
Yeah, your cultivates, like go get your ramp and things like that. Whereas for us, it's definitely a little bit different. But as far as the statistics goes, our number one played card, and we talked about this when we brought it up, is Birds of Paradise.
Yep.
Rainbow Dork. Love Rainbow Dorks. Second up on that list is Worldly Tutor. Again, card we talked about. Worldly Tutor is amazing for us. When we want to search for a creature, it's going to be a good creature. It's going to be either a combo piece, or it's going to be something that's going to slow down the game, maybe.
It used to be Dockside.
It used to be Dockside. But, the ways that I've used this for people that are curious, like, I'll activate, like, Kinnan.
Yes.
And then I'll Worldly Tutor in response to it and put the thing I want right on top. And
So
then,
good.
Like, put my Seedborn Muse on top. Something like that, which is a card we'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, so obviously Worldly Tutor's great. We love our Worldly Tutors. If you're in a deck that cares about, like, Thassa's Oracle, you could go Worldly Tutor your Thassa's, right? Or if you're playing like like Timna Thrasios is something that maybe comes to mind.
Really good.
So next up on our list, Chris, do you want to take this one?
Yes. So, like we were talking about before with World Tour, like, man, we should really see more of these realistically. The next one on our list, 31% played, was Court of Calling. This is a great card. I love this card entirely. It is an instant speed spell.
I believe it is X green, but it has Convoke, so you can tap your creatures as part of the cost for that. And then you search your library for a creature that is X or less at instant speed, and you put it directly onto the battlefield.
I love this card for this exact reason. The Convoke effect for Court of Calling being cool. Creatures you can help you cast a spell. Each creature you can tap while casting the spell for 1. So essentially, you have green, and you have 20, I don't know, spirits. Right?
Well, who cares?
Yeah.
Right? What is like a bunch of 1/1 token elves that you had.
Colorless
right? Who cares, right? As long as it's just a bunch of dorky 1/1s.
They don't have
It doesn't matter. Summoning Sickness doesn't even matter.
Correct. No summoning sickness.
You just tap it for Convoke because that's how it works.
Yep.
Again, just really surprised to not see something like that. Like, I could see myself casually just like you swing out with like 3 or 4 dudes at everyone, and then at instant speed, you're just like, cool, I'm going to tap all these 1/1s that just came in this turn, and I'm going to Convoke out my Crater Hoof in the middle of combat.
You could literally use all your dorks that are going to be huge, cool 1/1s. I'll
Yeah,
them all through, and now you're dead.
Yeah, I won't take any of it. It's okay. It's just a bunch of 1/1s. I don't care. And then immediately Convoke out a Court of Calling and just kill the table.
Yes.
Just out of nowhere, right? Obviously, it would be a bit of a feels bad and casual, right? But like, I'm just surprised that I don't see it kind of played because people love going wide. People love having a lot of creatures.
Green-white has a lot of vigilance in general. Cool. Swing with all my vigilance 1/1s. Cool. And then in response, tap them all and go and just cool.
Yeah. But as far as CDH is concerned, this can do a lot for us. This can allow us to win at instant speed, depending on the loops that we kind of go for. This can allow us to put in a stacks piece at instant speed. Like I've used a Quarter Calling to put in like a Manglehorn before to stop again, Dockside's gone now, but a Dockside loop on the stack. I was like, cool, I'm going to court out a Manglehorn. And I'm just going to stop this right here, right now.
My opponent's tapped out entirely. Cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a Dosin, play that on his end step. He's tapped out. Cool. He's not doing anything. And then it goes to my turn, and the game's done.
Yeah.
They counter it. The biggest thing with Court of Calling is they really don't know what you're going to get. Unless it's the same group. It's like, cool, go get a 3. Well, what could they have in 3? Well,
they're like, oh, he could have a Dosin in there. You're like, oh, he could have the Manglehorn. He could be going for Manglehorn.
Sure.
And then you're like, oh, but is he going for like an Eternal Witness loop? Is he going for...
Don't worry, guys. I'm not going for the win. This turn.
And then you put a Dosin into play. And you're like, well, now it's my turn, so now I'm going to go for it.
Don't do that. Don't do that to your friends.
Right. Just be honest when you go for a spell. But yeah, Court of Calling is great. Like I said, I am a little surprised it doesn't see play casually because it looked from EDH Rec that it was like $7 or something like that.
It's like $6-7. Super inexpensive.
Yeah, love Court of Calling. Court of Calling's great. So next up on the list, Delighted Halfling. Again, another card I'm not. I guess the colorless maybe isn't quite as efficient. Maybe I'm not sure what it is.
I think it's insanely.
But Delighted Halfling. 1 green, taps for a colorless on its own, but then you can tap it for any color as long as you're casting a legendary spell, and then it is an uncounterable spell.
Correct.
That does not just include your commander, that includes legendary artifacts, legendary enchantments.
Yes, the 1 ring. You can ring. Cool, tap for red, the rest is colorless, it's uncounterable.
Right. Again, I'm kind of surprised I don't see it.
There's a lot of legendary creatures out there that are really, really good. And uncounterability, not huge in EDH, but in CDH, huge. Especially getting down the 1 ring early. Yeah. It's good. It's a 1/2 body as well. So
things that are just like do 1 damage to everything, don't hit it as hard.
I think it'll see more play in general. I think with the fall potentially of Sisay, not entirely, but play amount. Najeela hasn't seen too much play. I can't think of any other heavy command. Kinnan, some people have put it in and put it out. Yeah. I know comedians definitely put it in and out every so often, and sometimes he hates it, sometimes he loves it. But I mean, technically, whenever you tap with Kinnan, if you tap it for blue, you make an additional blue. You can use that 1 blue still, technically, to use your Kinnan, which is kind of interesting. And kind of funny.
Little neat interaction piece. But yeah, maybe that's why it doesn't see play casually. People aren't really concerned about having their stuff countered a lot of the time, and they're just like, well, why would I put Delighted Halfling in? People don't really run counter spells because I don't like it or whatever.
Sure,
maybe you have that Rule 0 kind of conversation about it. So maybe that's why it doesn't see so much play. I also don't know if it's pricey or not, but in our format, we like our Delighted Halflings. If we can make our commander uncounterable, if there's some like crazy ETB or we just really want to make sure that it sticks, Delighted Halfling's fantastic.
I think it's really good.
Love Delighted Halfling. Okay, Chris, do you want to take Eldritch Evolution?
Eldritch Evolution. I've been playing the game for a little while. I've definitely been modern with Eldritch Evolution, and it really never stuck to me the very last line. It goes to the graveyard and then exile it. So sometimes even people that have been playing this card for a long time, sometimes you just don't know the entire card. So reading the card sometimes explains the card, and sometimes it really doesn't. When it says any target, sometimes it's not any target. It's any creature target. It's quite interesting. But either way, Eldritch Evolution is essentially a 1 green. Go get a creature with 2 or plus more CMC that you have. So you sacrifice a dork, a 1-mana dork. You can get a 3, and it's that or below. So if you want to get a 2. You can do that. If you want to get another 1-drop, you can. Some ones that do similar actions like this, you can only get 1 more toughness or 1 more CMC than this. So I really like it. It's a little bit expensive, but when you need a card to go and get your thing, it's pretty good. Some people don't like it in general because you have to sacrifice whatever it is, part of the casting cost in general. Then again, someone can't kill it in response, and then it fizzles. But you know, sacrificing something that maybe you want to the graveyard anyway, and then go and get in a 5-drop, an 8-drop, or whatever, doesn't feel too bad in general. I really like this card. Being a Nagila pilot in general, I love sacrificing a dork and going and get a Drevi and just winning the game.
And just GG, game's over.
Super good. So outside of the feels bad, Eldritch Evolution is incredibly good. Once again, the double pit Bagreem sometimes can hurt, but if your mana base is set up correctly and like the last one, Delight of Halfling, doesn't really help you cast it. So some reason why people don't play it, and I think that might be one of the reasons in general. The next one on our list is Finale of Devastation. You want to go over this one, Nate?
Yeah, I love Finale of Devastation. So Finale of Devastation is X green. You can search your library and your graveyard, or your graveyard, for a creature with CMC X or less, and put it directly onto the battlefield. If X is 10 or more, I believe it is just they get haste until end of turn. They do not get trample. They just get haste.
X plus X.
But they also, they get X. They get plus X. Sorry.
Sure.
I mean, if X is over 10.
Yes.
Finale of Devastation, another great piece. It is a little bit sad that it's sorcery speed. I kind of wish it was instant to be fun. But I could see some broken things, synergies with that. But yeah, Finale of Devastation for a lot of CEDH decks is our win con. Essentially, we will find a way to make infinite mana. And essentially what we can do is we can either we can like loop Finale of Devastation by like putting it back into our library.
Go and get Eternal Witness, do it again.
Using Eternal Witness, getting it back, like flickering the Eternal Witness or like bouncing it and then putting it back into play. And then we tutor out all the creatures in our deck. Typically, because people don't really go wide in CEDH, they don't have a lot of creatures. So even though we're running 20, typically that person has 3, you'll have 2, and someone else will have another 3.
Sure.
So we'll just send 4 your way, 4 your way, and 3 your way. Right? And then the game's over. Because one of them will get through and you'll be dead. Right? As far as win cons go, it's kind of the best it has in green when we have less colors to work with.
Yeah.
It's kind of a feels bad sometimes. Being our only win con in certain colors. But the ones that can abuse it, I really, really like it. And the ones that like easily make infinite mana, like something like Kinnan.
Yes.
I think it makes a ton of sense, and I love Finale.
It is very good. I suppose you are 100% right. So it has to be on your turn.
Yeah.
That's one of the bad things about it in general. Cool. It has to get to my turn. Sometimes we're on time in CDH and it's not getting back to our turn.
Yeah.
Sometimes someone's going off. In general, we're not winning with this while someone's trying to go off. We can try to counter and get to our turn, but in a 80-minute game, sometimes this is better just used early and then recurred later on, realistically. And sometimes people hold on to this card like, this is my only win con. It's like, if that's your only win con, you might want to add an additional one, but it really is our Creator of Behemoth in the format as a spell, as well as a search and put to battlefield. So it's incredibly good.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing that I, just as a quick caveat to people that are getting into our format, the fun thing that I like about Eldritch Evolution and Finale Devastation specifically is they are great sneaky pieces. Because sometimes you just have excess mana. And so you'll be like, okay, I'm going to tap for 8 and cast this Finale Devastation for 6. And people go, 6? What does he have for 6? What is in his deck for 6? I can't think of a 6.
I'm getting a 5.
And then they go, well, it can't be that serious. Go ahead. And you're like, cool. Seedborn Muse. right? Which, since we brought it up twice now, I'll just bring up Seedborn Muse currently. It sees play mainly in like Thrasios and Kinnan style decks.
Yes.
So Seedborn Muse is 3 green, and it is a creature that basically just says that on oh my gosh, I can't speak. On each of your opponent's upkeep or untap, you also untap.
So their untaps are now
Your untaps.
Our
untaps. so essentially in Thrasios style decks, you get more activations, which means more cards to hand, more lands on the battlefields for more activations. It means that for Kinnan, we're spinning Kinnan more often, and we're getting more creatures on the battlefield that they now have to deal with even that piece and the new piece that comes up. It also gives us constant access to mana, so if we need to hold up, like say something's blocking 0 mana spells, but we have a Force of Will and we can hard cast it, right? So with our Seedborn Muse, we'll untap, and maybe we're just like, you know what? I'm not going to activate Thrasios. I'm going to hold up this Force of Will because I think he's going to go off. Something like that. Seedborn Muse is great. Maybe there's just not a lot of good ways for people to interact in EDH to take advantage of Seedborn Muse.
It's interesting. It's actually seen more play in EDH than CEDH, actually.
Interesting.
At least based on our statistics that are here via the Invitational. In EDH, it's seen about 8% of the time, and in CEDH, it's only seen about 6.25% of the Invitational, 4 decks out of 62. So it's... maybe just not many green decks in general. Maybe Kinnan isn't too heavy in our format. I believe it's about ready to pop the fuck off.
Yeah, it'll probably see a bit more play.
I believe so. So that's a really good one. I really do enjoy Seedborn Muse. Definitely interesting, even in, I believe, Timna Thrasios, like you were talking about earlier. I definitely see the mid-range plan coming back a little bit with Sans Red's deck.
Yeah.
Because outside of Underworld Breach... what are you playing in Red for right now?
Yep. Okay.
Bloom Tender. Man, this one can be really, really good. I love it in Kinnan. It is a 1/1, though, but it's a 1 and a green, right? And it taps for however many colors that you have. So if you, for example, in Kinnan, you have Kinnan on the field, and you have Bloom Tender on the field. They both don't have Summoning Sickness, or Bloom Tender doesn't have Summoning Sickness. You tap it. It taps for whatever colors that you have. So you have a green, a blue, and then you can make an additional blue or green. So essentially, you tap it for 3 mana. If you're playing, for example, one of our guys plays Joda, you can tap it for all 5 colors, and then play something else. So it's really good. Bowmasters definitely hurts it. Seems play in 17% of the decks for CEDH, and about 8% for regular old EDH. It can be really good.
Can also be really bad.
I think out of all
in
the
Bowmaster format.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think out of all the Bolt the Bird effects, this is probably the one that takes the cake the most.
Agreed.
This makes way too much mana. Cool, Birds of Paradise. It's a blocker for Crom, if you will. So maybe you don't want to kill that one because you don't want them drawing extra cards, right? Hey, you can keep that around. Just don't tap it and block Crom, and we're good to go. But Bloom Tender, cool. Make 3 mana, make 5 mana, make 4 mana.
Right. It's the fact that you can so easily abuse it. Like, because we talk about Kinnan, and you would think, why would we play Bloom Tender in something like Kinnan? But the fact that we can have a dork that taps for more than a single mana, especially up to 3, and even in certain situations where because for instance, I've played Kinnan where I've flipped a Gilded Drake off the top, and I take someone's like opposition agent, and now my Bloom Tender taps for 4 mana because now it also taps for black.
Sure.
It feels so good when it's good. But the fact that it just has that one toughness, it dies to a stiff breeze.
Sure.
But I do love me a Bloom Tender, especially in like your higher color decks or the decks like Kinnan that can easily abuse it.
Yeah.
Sisay is another great example of that. Sisay actually abuses Bloom Tender to go through. Like, it hurt a little bit from the Dockside ban recently.
Yeah.
I still think that Sisay will come back from it. I think that with Bloom Tender and some other effects, I think it will find ways to get there, because that's typically the line that people can take.
There's a couple different cards that have been printed over the last couple years that are absolutely insane. And one of them that comes to mind in general is going to be Veil of Summer. This card is insanely good. It is essentially a counter spell, draw spell, protection spell. I love it. In Standard, when it came out, it was like a $10 card, common, or uncommon, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like an $8 to $10 uncommon, and it's still expensive to this day. it's insanely good.
You in permanence control, you get hexproof from blue and black, and spells you control can't be countered this turn.
Amazing.
I believe is the whole wording on it. Obviously, it'll be up here, but I believe that's all of the wording on it. Now, for those that, if John decides to watch this episode, hopefully he'll vouch for me. And we were dumb in a tournament we played, where somebody Veil of Summered and I had a lightning bolt in hand, and I thought I could no longer hit his stuff. It only gives hexproof from blue and black. It does not give hexproof from everything.
Yes.
So, just remember that.
Yes, only blue and black, not from everything. I mean,
correct.
so against bowmasters in general,
Yeah,
cool.
Bowmaster can't hit it anymore.
That's great. You cast it in that, and then it's a great spell. It's kind of like
you also draw a card if a blue or black spell has been cast this
Yes.
turn. So if someone casts a Bowmaster and you're like, cool, in response, I'll Veil of Summer. You draw, and then your things.
it's kind of like, I feel like it's a little bit like a silence. I've done this a couple different times where what I'll do is I'll go to someone's upkeep right before my turn and say, they're going to win the game. Cool. I'm going to silence them in response. And everyone's like, yeah, of course we want that to happen. And he's like, okay, I guess so. Then we go to his unstep and cool. Adnaz. Let's go. Let's go. And it's kind of how the Veil of Summer feels a little bit. Sometimes you can like, cool, I'm going to play a spell. Okay, I'm going to Veil of Summer, whatever it is. And then I'm going to play the spell that I really, really actually want to play, which is absolutely insane. Cool. Win the game. Oh, no, it can't be countered. Let's go.
Yep.
Let's go. So I think it's a really versatile card. One reason, realistically, to play green, I just absolutely love it. It's seen play in about 15% of decks in the Invitational and about 6% on CDH Rec.
Yeah. And to a lesser extent, if people are curious about other effects that do something similar to this, just a quick shout out to Autumn's Veil. Kind of does something similar. Doesn't draw you a card, but you still can kind of get that same.
We already went over Crop Rotation, and we already went over Eternal Witness in general. Really not much to say in CEDH.
Yeah. Just so that people know, just like a quick, maybe just a quick little combo with Eternal Witness, so that way people are aware of it.
Sure.
So if you control, for instance, Gaia's Cradle, and Gaia's Cradle, you need to have at least one source that makes blue, and a Gaia's Cradle that taps for at least like 3.
Okay.
You tap the Gaia's Cradle for 3, use the blue, and you snap your Eternal Witness back to your hand. And then you play back out the Eternal Witness. You get the snap back to hand.
Oh, okay.
And then because you snapped, you untapped your Gaia's Cradle in your land, and then you just continue the loop.
Awesome.
I may be off on the mana there, actually.
It just depends on how many creatures you have. I mean, you need blue.
In order to go like infinite mana wise, you have to have a certain amount of creatures. I can't remember the number, but that's essentially the loop.
Interesting. Okay, because it goes to the graveyard. You
And
play
then-
it again.
right.
Rinse and repeat. Infinite mana. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty
and,
cool.
And both those are definitely very playable in those color combos for sure. Huh.
Yeah, I believe Cloud of Fairies does something similar.
Huh.
If you have like that, because Cloud of Fairy enters and untaps 2 lands, and then you snap it back, and then you play it again. But I think there's another piece of that loop that I don't quite remember.
I really like that in general.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're already playing Eternal Witness, Snap is just kind of an include at that point in time, and you're playing green, you might as well. Huh.
So just a fun little
No, that's awesome.
just a fun
Infinite
little
mana,
piece
that's-
for those that didn't know. But
I like it. I didn't know that. Thank you.
yeah.
Invasion of Korra.
Yeah, we went over Invasion of Korra, but the next one up, okay. This one I feel like is underplayed,
Yes.
and I love it.
I think it's underplayed in in CDH as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Endurance is 1 green. It has Flash. So you can exile a green card from your hand. If you do it that way, you have to sacrifice it. But essentially what it does is when it enters the battlefield, a target player puts the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order. So why is this important, right?
Thassa's Oracle.
Thassa's Oracle. Underworld Breach loops.
Huge.
Things like that the moment they try to go for something and you can run out a creature, which is already hard to counter in our format, that says, okay, cool, I'm going to Endurance your like Lion's Eye Diamond back on the bottom of your graveyard.
Yes.
So even if you brain freeze, chances are you don't hit it again.
And it's really good. It gives you some loops in Kinnan to go infinite to make sure that everyone draws out their entire deck. It's really good as a flash creature as well. Sometimes like, cool, no one's really playing what I need to do, and I need an extra attacker or a blocker. It's a 3/4 with reach, so cool. It hits a lot of different things, Malcolm or any other flyers in general. Cool. It's a big body, and people don't expect it. Like, hey, you don't want to attack me. I'm not gonna tell you what I'm gonna do, but you don't want to attack me, and they attack you anyway with their Timna. It's like, cool. Well, I'm gonna play it and stop you from drawing an extra card.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So
I think the other reason I like this is like sometimes people are trying to mill you, and maybe they think that they have the win on you,
Sure.
right?
Ooh.
They don't have their Thassa's Oracle, right? So they brain freeze the whole table, and they're like, "Cool, I win now, but I'm just gonna go ahead and pass turn." And then in your upkeep, you're like, "Cool, I'm gonna flash in this endurance, and I'm gonna put my entire library back."
super good.
And you're good and you're safe, right? That and 3 mana for this creature is just not that bad.
One
so
green,
even
green,
if you have
yeah.
to exile a green card, like even if you don't have a green card to exile, 3 mana is really not that hard to hold up for this kind of effect.
The next couple ones, all at about 10% played in CEDH, is Elvish Mystic, Finhorn Elves, Llanowar Elves. We went over it before.
Yep.
You know, hey, these are good. They do their thing, but also watch out because there's a Bowmasters meta. Nothing else too much to say. They definitely see more play in EDH than CEDH, but with the new bans kicking a dead horse,
Right.
they might see more play.
Yeah.
We'll see. But
We'll see.
Bowmasters is not going away, I don't think, anytime soon.
The next one up is Carpet of Flowers. So Carpet of Flowers is a 1 green enchantment that you can choose on either one of your main phases.
Yes.
I don't know the exact wording on it, but you can choose on either one of your main phases to add 1 mana of any color for a number of islands that an opponent controls,
And
a
you
target opponent.
You to target them.
So, for instance, if you try to target them and they like had just cast the One Ring or something, you can't actually target that opponent for their islands.
They Veil of Summer in response.
Yeah.
It goes away.
You get nothing.
You get nothing.
Right. So obviously, I don't think someone's going to really do that. There's a chance. There's a chance
If
that
they're going for the
concerned,
win,
right? If there's a chance. But I don't know. I think that because things might slow down a touch. I know that some people are concerned that Rog Sai is going to come back in, or But again, this whole meta is going to shift.
Yep.
But the fun thing about Carpet of Flowers is because we can go a little bit slower. I have a feeling that Harbinger of the Seas and like Magus of the Moon might see some play.
I think Magus of the Moon is absolutely cracked right now. I think it's cracked. I think it's disgusting because before you'd play Dockside and you'd be able to get out of your loop. Now, if you're able to play that plus a No Rod or a Collector Oof or a Karn, maybe not the Karn, but still, either way, I think it's absolutely disgusting. Like, cool. How are they getting out of this? Bolt?
Right.
How many people were playing that? There's not too many red spells that are really going to interact with enchantments, and you're just kind of locked out, and you're like, cool, and I'm just sitting here.
You're like, well, draw and pass, I guess.
So a green blue, man. Would you play Carpet in Kinnan with Harbinger?
I don't know. That's a good question. It might be something that I might have to test it out, see how it feels. Maybe
We might get Caden in on that. I know he's got some serious, interesting brews, and Caden, you might want to try out Carpet of Flowers plus Harbinger.
Might be neat.
I think it'd be really interesting.
So yeah, again, love Carpet of Flowers. I was a little bit lower on Carpet of Flowers, but now that things have changed, I might be a little bit higher.
I'm pretty high on it.
Might be a little bit higher.
Even if it just makes 1 mana, how's that any worse than any other enchantment?
But that's over the course of turns, right? Right. It's not like it just makes 1 mana the one time. If that sticks out for 4 turns and nobody ever plays an island again, that's still 4 mana that you invested 1 mana into.
Correct.
So he probably put it up on the screen, but we didn't actually say what Dosen does. So Dosen is kind of a bad Grand Abolisher in green.
Yes.
Still a good effect. Don't get me wrong. When I say bad Grand Abolisher, it's still close enough to a Grand Abolisher that I say that.
Yes.
Because Grand Abolisher says that you can't like activate basically anything on someone's turn other than like your lands. And Dosen just says you can only cast spells during your turn, and that's for all players. So if a Dosen sticks and you don't win during your turn, then the next person has protection. So that's why it feels a little bit bad.
It does feel bad, but then again, there's always going to be, in those kind of effects, I really like running Birthing Pod. Birthing Pod is a 4 mana artifact.
Yeah, 3 in Phyrexian green.
Yes, so essentially you can play it for 3 and 2 life, and then when it comes to the battlefield, you can pay 1 and a Phyrexian green, which Phyrexian green is pay 2 life or pay the green. You can only do it on your turn, right? You can only do it on your turn, but you could sacrifice that Dosen. You could cast it, do what you've got to do, sacrifice your Dosen, go get your 5-drop. That doesn't get Kiki. I don't know what it really gets most of the time, but you could there are ways to get rid of it in general, and definitely if you're going to be passing turn with all the recursion, finale of devastation, go get it back from your graveyard, play it again if you really want to.
Yeah.
It's not horrible, but you cannot pass the turn
with that Dosen still in play.
You either
you either win or you get rid of him somehow.
Yes. Playing him turn 1, sure. No, don't do it.
Please don't.
Don't do it. It stops
Unless you really think you're going to win.
the turn 2. It's a win. It's not a winning line to be playing that spell.
There's obviously other pieces that we could have talked about overall. I don't know if there's any other stats that you want to try to go over in general.
We'll just go over the green one right now.
Sure.
So what I did is I was able to pull this week from the top 20 commanders of EDH. Okay, it's only 20. It's only about 1.2 million decks, 27% of all decks in EDH rec, but it's good enough sample size in general. And what I did is I just basically pulled all the decks and said, how much is the likelihood of the top 20 decks of that you're going to see these colors? And it was quite interesting in general. When you have 5 different colors, the average should be about 20 per, if everything's spread out evenly. And just like Nate was saying at the beginning, I thought green was played a lot more in EDH.
Yeah.
I would love to see what it is in CEDH as well, and maybe we'll pull the top 20 decks and just figure out what the likelihood of them even playing green is in them, and then maybe even seeing the percentage that they play of green in those decks. Is it heavy? Is it light? Yeah. Who really knows? But for the EDH rec statistics, green is the least played in EDH.
Which, again, I'm very shocked by. Because I know when I was playing casually, green felt like it just dominated.
Yeah,
it was just everywhere, and again, this is a small sample size, right? This is the top 20 decks, so there's tons, right? But when you're looking at 27%, which is over a quarter, just like you said, you're looking for that 20% spread. And based on our numbers, green's the lowest of the bunch at 17%.
Yeah, 17%. So it's 3 points lower than it really needs to be in general. It's quite interesting. Like you said, I mean, a lot of the effects, once again, are realistically go get a land, which landfall definitely does happen, but it doesn't do enough. It seems like I think green is lacking in win conditions. I know we have a local guy that's mono green. He plays his Nissa deck, and he does really, really well for himself.
100%.
So just because a deck is, or archetype, or a color pie in general is low play does not mean that you can't compete if this fits your play style the best. So don't be afraid to play your mono green, to play your splash green decks, because it does really well at creature combos in general.
Anyway, I think that does it for green. So thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate the support on the last couple of videos. It's been fantastic.
Yes, we really appreciate it.
Things have been going great, and I just want to keep this ball rolling as much as we can.
With that, be sure, hey guys, we want to hear what you want to hear about. We want to hear your critiques. We've heard some certain things like, hey, we like this, we don't like that. Please let us know. We're here to make this fun and enjoyable and create a good community in general. So if you want to hear about something, if you don't want to hear about something, any critiques, honestly, really welcomed and really appreciated that you guys would take your time and let us know what's up. So I really appreciate that. We are the Turning Point Meta, and we'll catch you next week. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.